We all have storms in our lives that cleanse, clear, and convert the aftermath into a rainbow. If you have the right attitude, you can grow and weather the storm. Let's talk about it now over lunch with Stormy.
Welcome. I'm Stormy Simon. I was a single mom on welfare who went on to become an e-commerce pioneer, a successful businesswoman, leading a $2 billion company, and an outspoken advocate on so many things. It's become a passion of mine to meet other ordinary people who have gone on to do extraordinary things. And that's what's led me here to share these conversations with you over lunch with Stormy. And I am so excited about today's guest. So excited. And I'm so proud because I'm hosting the incomparable J.R. Martinez on today's show. And this man, if you don't know him, you'll soon find out. He is a true inspiration, a role model for many. I can already tell you, fun to hang out with. He's an Army veteran who survived amazing circumstances. An actor, a husband, a dad, a podcast host, and a motivational speaker. Many reasons to be motivational too. He's also, this is a long list and worthy of saying, a New York Times best-selling author and had a significant long-term role on All My Children. Amazing. And he won season 13 of Dancing with the Stars. So he can shake his groove thing in addition to all those other things. Amazing, really. So he has a constant smile on his face. He's an ambassador, a true ambassador of just hope. And he shares this message with of resilience and such optimism that I can't wait to hear more. So please help me welcome the fabulous J.R. Martinez.
Yes. Thank you. I have a question though. Before you hit me with a million questions, I have just one for you.
Oh.
If this were not COVID and we were able to do this in person, would we actually be eating right now?
Well, we would probably have a little snack, something that's like my favorite things. I have these favorite things that I love sharing with people, and they're not healthy. It's not like I'm going to give you a kale salad. Oh. It's like watermelon Sour Patch Kids or slices and like prawns, jelly-filled donuts.
Okay. So can I come back when it's non-COVID, or when I can at least give you my results of a test that I've been tested and I'm negative? Can I come back and we can do this thing in person?
I'll do you one better. I am getting ready to go on a road trip. I'm taking the show on the road with like my best friend Josh, and we'll drive to Austin and we'll come sit outside. You can sit in our RV with us.
I'll do it.
And snack on a bunch of delicious, yummy things. And one of my yummy things is right here. It's my water.
Is that Sunkissed?
It's Crystal Light grape flavored. It's my favorite thing. Again, I don't know if it's healthy. There's aspartame in it, but I cannot live without them.
You know what? You tell me when you're coming to Austin, and I'll be sure to bring barbecue, music, and maybe I'll like figure out how to bring you like a cowboy hat or something. I don't know what else like Austinites do. Like we just moved here a couple of years ago, so we're still trying to figure out like what Austinites do in comparison to the rest of Texas. But I'll love
take that camo hat over the cowboy.
Okay. Yeah. I got you. You let me know. You keep me posted.
Lunch by nature means we can talk about all kinds of things. It's not a business lunch.
Yes, I love it. It.
We could also have beers and stuff in the RV.
I love it. Sour Patch Kids and beers. I mean, I know a few good brands here, and there's a few good breweries and distilleries in Austin. So you'd come to a right place. So I got you on that.
I can't wait for live lunch.
Oh my God. Isn't that going to be awesome? Isn't that going to be awesome? Like I'm a hugger, right? Like I'm a Southern boy. Like I'm a hugger. I'm all about hugs. And I've gone from hugs to, hey, your red line over there, that's not 6 feet. I'm on my red line. You stay on your red line. Where's your red dot? Like
get on your circle.
Yeah, and I'm just so anxious to get back to hugging people and to shaking hands and to feeling people's like laughter and energy in the same space, because it truly is what it truly is what gets me going, right? It's like that individual that loves to be on stage, loves to perform. I just love being around people. The good, the bad, the ugly. I love just being around people. I really do.
Well, that's what you've done. Like COVID for folks who have, your careers on the road, it's motivating people, it's standing in groups. And I get the energy thing. It's so hard.
Hmm.
Um, but COVID was like, I mean, and I don't mean this lightly, but almost another traumatic experience,
Absolutely.
where it was like, holy moly, for everyone to have to stop. And if you were very active, it was a hard few months because for me, I kept waiting for it to change. Like, oh, well, I'll just do this. And then here the past few months, my friends have been like, I've gained 10 pounds, So I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm eating all my yummy foods, right? My favorite things. And my friends are like, oh, I redid the garage, I painted the house, I also got, surgery, and then I worked out and transformed my body in 90 days and all
Yeah.
these things. So I was like, I got to do a COVID project. So I wound up with a trailer. Like I
So
did something
do you
too.
post this trailer? Like, you have it on social media?
Not yet. I
Not yet.
actually have
Okay.
just finished. I'm going to start posting the befores and after. It's the first time, but I came to a complete halt in my life. And it's like, what does Stormy do?
Yeah.
What my passions, and don't know if I quite found them, but I'm pretty good at renovating trailers, it
Yeah,
turns
well,
out.
you know what? That's something that a lot of people can't do, you know? So, I mean, I don't have that skill set. And I think, COVID for a lot of people, with respect to people that have lost jobs and lost income, and, how do you support your families? And then, of course, those that have been ill and those, unfortunately, that have lost a loved one, want to be respectful to them and not be tone deaf, but for everybody else, I believe that it has been, it has been that it's hard to see it this way. And I get it. And I again want to be mindful of people suffering, but it's, for me, I look at it as almost like a little bit of a blessing in disguise, right? Like, and I know that's really hard for people to listen to right now. They're like, wait, what did he just say? Hit that 15-second rewind button, we want to hear that soundbite again. And I'm saying that because when I was injured, I can now tell you 17, 18 years later, I can tell you that it was a blessing. That period of time in my life when my life was literally like altered forever. And for 3 months, I was isolated in a 250 square foot hospital room where I could have no contact with anybody else outside of my doctors and my mother. And if you did come into my room, you had to wear a gown, you had to wear a mask, you had to wear a head covering, you had to wear booties, you had to wear gloves. Nobody can come in and out of my room without any one of those things. And every time you walked in, you sanitized. Every time you walked out, you sanitized, because there was such a fear of me potentially catching any sort of an infection, because my body was incredibly fragile, or people getting an infection from me passing it on to another patient. And so, there was an element where, for me, I can relate to this because I stood in my
Right, you
hospital
lived
room.
it.
Yeah, and I looked out, like Stormy, let me tell you, I looked out of my hospital window, and I would see just people out on the street, just walking and living. I would look out of my hospital door, and I couldn't, it was literally like being in jail, where I couldn't put my head past like this door. So I would just kind of turn my head to the side just to kind of see how much I can see, because the doctors and the nurses were all like, don't put your head outside that door, right? And so I would
Right.
just look around in the hallway and just see people like hanging out, talking, being together. God, I wanted to be a part of that world so bad. And it was so hard for me to witness the world still moving. And yet I feel stuck and I feel like I'm in one place. And so now here you fast forward to COVID 2020 and still 2021. And I'm thinking to myself, like, it's hard for people to see it the way that I see it. But when COVID happened, I was like, okay, this is an opportunity for us to pay attention. This is an opportunity for us to hit reset. This is an opportunity for us to pay attention and evaluate and do some self inventory in life. Find out who are the people that we have in our lives, because I think a
Right.
lot of
That's what
people
happened, isn't it?
discovered a lot. I think a lot of things were discovered about people that either in your family or in your community or maybe your kids, friends, parents, and
Everywhere.
you're kind of like, you know what? I think I can go this far with you. Even when the world opens back up, I kind of know where I stand with you and you with me and, whatever. And so for me, it was just an incredible opportunity like you. I mean, here you are, you got an RV, right? Like, and you're doing your thing. And I'm sure that was something that maybe before you thought of, but you probably said, I don't have enough time. And the
Never would have
universe
done
and
it.
life said, well, guess what? Now you have time. So it's a matter for me. I asked myself the question, when the world opens back up, I want to be able to look back at this period where we were isolated from one another and ask myself the question, J.R., how did you take advantage of this downtime? What did you do during this time? What did you do? Did you learn anything? Did you grow? Did you challenge yourself? Did you connect with people? Did you build? What did you do, J.R.? And the last thing I want to do is waste that precious thing that so many of us talk about we never have, time.
It's profound coming from you. And I want to go back for the listeners to let them know why you joined the Army or you were deployed with the Army in 2003. Early, so I had a nephew that went out early to go set up the water filtration systems in Kuwait. So before soldiers, our fighters went.
Right.
I was thinking that was 2002, but I think he actually went in 2003. Was it?
What the conflict started in March of 2003. So
that's exactly when he went. That was
he could have gotten there end of February, mid-February, late February, early March, and set up this system. So it could have been anywhere in that time frame because the conflict started in the end of March of 2003.
So you were one of the first troops out there, very, very early.
Right. I was. And, I was incredibly naive. I was 19 years old. It's crazy how time has flown by. I'm going to be 38 and later this year, 2021, 38 years old. And, I can tell you that it was, when I joined the Army, it was during a time of war. We obviously had troops in Afghanistan. There were rumors of us going to Iraq. For those listeners that don't recall, I joined the Army a year after 9/11 happened. So that's why we were in Afghanistan. And of course, we were talking about going to Iraq. And at the age of 19, joining the Army, I just thought it was going to be like football camp, like a bunch of guys, you go and you go hang out and you go train and you that's what you do.
Guy stuff. Yeah,
exactly.
Stuff, guns, wear cool outfits.
Exactly. And and work out and do all these crazy things. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, man, this is great. Like I have no experience. I have no training, but I'm around these guys that do. I'm around guys that have seen the world, that have traveled around the world, that had instantly by being in their presence, I felt like I was elevated to being a badass myself. But yet I was nowhere near qualified to being a badass. Like I was literally a 19-year-old kid that had no idea of the realities of what I just put myself into. And it was one day my sergeant came and tapped me on the shoulder and he told me that I needed to be prepared. He said, you got to be ready because we are going to be deploying. Now, he wasn't referencing physically. He was talking about I needed to mentally be prepared.
Right.
Because I was just like, again, I was naive. And so here I was after arriving in my unit. I arrived in my unit and 2 months later, I was on a plane with the rest of my unit heading over to the Middle East going to war, which is insane when you think about that because
it's insane. Just little
I joined
kids.
in September. I joined in September of 2002, did basic training for 3 months took me till the mid-December of 2002. Then literally I took the holidays. They let me go home for the holidays. January of 2003, I arrived in my unit. And then March, 2 months later, I'm on a plane going to war. How in the hell was I actually qualified to be in that scenario? How was I going to be any use to anybody?
How can you prepare?
How can I really? Yeah. And all I can do, Stormy, was literally lean on everyone around me that had those experiences, whether it was in conflict or they had been in other foreign countries. Because the only foreign country that I had been to and up to that point in my life was Central America. I had gone to Central America a few times. And so going to Iraq I felt like, okay, seeing the way people lived, it wasn't that far-fetched from the way my family lives in Central America. So that wasn't the thing. The thing was really odd is when we would have these little briefings and they would say, okay, if we found ourselves in this scenario, this is how you respond. This is how you react. And I kept thinking to myself, wait a minute, what? I'm supposed to do what? That's because I couldn't get past the fact that the enemy is still a human being. is still a person that has a heartbeat, that has blood running through their body, that is still a son, a daughter, a brother, a sister, a mother, a father. And it just took me a while. It really took me a long time to process this concept of what war was going to look like and sound like, and potentially what the realities would be of
But how long were you there before?
it.
You weren't there that long, were
I
you?
wasn't.
Before you were injured.
Yeah.
This was a quick 6 months.
Yeah, no. Well, I was injured 3.5 weeks after arriving in Iraq. Yeah, so it happened incredibly fast. And I believe I am one of those that has the belief that my purpose was never necessarily to be in the military. My purpose was, I think the military served as a way to kind of catapult me into what I'm doing today, to give me the background, to give me the element of the story, to be able to continue the work that I'm doing today. And it introduced me to my purpose. It introduced me to this beautiful thing that I have fallen in love with. That so many men and women that join our military and have served over the course of this country's history is service. I love service. And that is so much,
Right.
it's so indebted in me now that even when I do what I do as a motivational speaker, even coming on your show and being a guest,
Being
for me,
motivational.
yeah, like for me, this is my service. This is what I bring to the table. This is what I offer. And so it's never about, that's for me, it wasn't ever about the idea that I was supposed to be in the Army for 20 years, even though I thought I would. It was
Right.
about, we're going to use this channel as a way to get you to what's your real purpose and how you can continue to serve other people in a different way.
Do you think that you had a unique upbringing, just in
Hmm.
the sense that your family was kind of, your mom and you were living here,
Hmm.
and you had siblings that were in Central America?
Hmm.
Did you have that sense of serving growing up? Or, tell me about growing up. Was that what brought your family to live, separately, and kind of
Yeah.
walk through that?
One of my sisters was born with an illness. So she, so her, we can, there's this element of where I recently did, and this is not a shame plug, but I recently did a 23andMe,
Oh yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm curious, because where my family's from in Central America, I mean, it literally is like third world country. You go outside and use the restroom, you go to the creek and you bathe in the creek, and then there's the other side of the creek where you wash the dishes, and then when the sun goes down, you go to bed, right? And you wake up when the sun
Right.
comes up, which is like 4:30 in the morning. And that was what I was exposed to. And so here I was as a young boy growing up with my mother, just my mother and I. And I can tell you that there were instances as a young boy where I would look around and I would see that I didn't have as much as my peers, but I quickly started to gain an appreciation for what I did have. So it was taught to me at a very young age, indirectly, just kind of me observing that, man, even though I don't get to have multiple pair of jeans to wear to school, 5 pair of jeans to wear for 5 days of the week, I have to recycle jeans and just kind of change the shirt. At least I have shelter. At least I have light. At least I have a video game. At least I can get food whenever I want. But to your question in relation to why did my family, come to the United States? So my mother had a daughter that had a disability, and she couldn't walk. And so my sister, would crawl everywhere, and well beyond the stages of being a baby when she should have been walking. So my mother, not having a lot of means or resources, decided, I'm going to make the trip to the United States, and my plan is to work for maybe a year, and then be able to send money back, and then come back to El Salvador and buy a wheelchair for my daughter and to buy her medicine. That was my mother's plan. Well, plans change. She came here and met this charismatic guy that she worked with and turned out to be my father. And I came into the picture, and that kind of threw off everything, of course.
Oh, so you never lived in El
I
Salvador?
never lived in El Salvador.
Oh,
I
I
was
thought you
born.
moved. Okay, got that. I
No,
didn't
I
know
was
that.
born in Louisiana, in Shreveport, Louisiana, and lived there for the first 9 years of my life, and then we, continued moving. But my mother, when she had me, she was like, well, kind of torn. Well, what do I do? Do I take
Yeah.
this child back to El Salvador, or to El Salvador, and at least we can all be together? But I'm also taking him away from his ability to be in this country. Obviously, there was an opportunity. She was here, and there was a better life here for her and for me. And her idea was, I'll try to bring my daughters over one day. And unfortunately, when I was 3 years old, that sister that had the disability unexpectedly passed away. And, it's just one of those things, man. Like, I
Right.
think
It just went, it
it's just,
just circumstantial took it
yeah,
places and
but
all the
but
things. Yeah.
but it's one of those things though for me. I think growing up and hearing that story and remembering my mother crying. I remember my mother sitting on the edge of the bed and being on the phone. I remember being 3 years old and running into the room and her crying and just telling her, "Mommy, it's okay." I remember vividly telling her that, and she's telling me, "You remember that sister I told you about? She passed away." And I was like 3, and I never played with my sister, so I
Right.
didn't know. But I can tell you that I remember what that did for me was it gave me this different perspective about life. It really did. And I didn't start to understand that and develop that until I started to age and get older, and looking back at that scenario and appreciate that my mother, here she was, that she was willing to make that journey to come here for my sister. And then for her not having the opportunity to go back to El Salvador to bury her child because of
You
fear of not being able to come back to the United States
see,
because of
I
me.
wondered if she had gotten stuck here. Yeah, but you
Yeah.
were born here, and that
Yeah.
makes
And
so much
so,
sense.
and that sat with her for so long, but so it was just my mother and I growing up, and we moved a lot. When her income levels changed, our housing changed. And I remember at 9 years old moving from Louisiana to Hope, Arkansas, and feeling incredibly isolated when I moved to
Hey,
Arkansas. I
Robert.
did not like it. I was one of the first Hispanic kids to arrive. It was predominantly white and black. I was picked on because I was the only Hispanic kid because I was like
What
this.
nationality is your father?
So my father's Mexican and my
Okay.
mother's Salvadorian. And so and then, so I felt kind of out of place there. And then I remember there were more Hispanic kids that started to arrive. And I thought, oh, this is great. I got my own little pack I'm going to be a part of. And no, I wasn't. Like, they literally looked at me and said, most of them said, well, you don't look like us. You don't speak like us. You don't have the same history as us. And so suddenly I found myself not good enough for them. And I was like, well, what the hell? And it wasn't until I was literally a junior in high school where I decided it's time for us to get out of here. And we had gone to visit a friend in Georgia, and I kind of came up with this plan for us to move to Georgia. And we did right before my senior year of high school. So I graduated high school from Georgia. So I'm a Southern boy. I mean, literally,
Through and
through and
through.
through. Yep, through and through.
I love that. And then you joined the army.
hmm So then I
Life
joined.
changes.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah,
Right?
but see,
So
that's the thing,
fast.
right? Like, I think for me, my life has been deeply embedded. When people ask me to come in and speak, they quickly go to tell us about what happened in Iraq and that story. And I'm like, well, hold on. There was 19 years of life that took place prior to that moment that changed my life forever. And I believe that those moments and those traumas that I experienced as a young boy, I mean, I witnessed my mother involved in abusive relationships. She was a victim of domestic abuse. I would be the one that would have to call the cops every time her boyfriend at the time started drinking. He started hitting her. I would have to grab the phone, call the police. He actually told my mother and I one time he was going to kill the both of us. Like, I was
Terrifying.
I was bullied. I mean, I felt incredibly isolated. I didn't feel like I had a community. I think I suffered in some degree a little bit of element of just wanting to be accepted, and even had these thoughts at 16 years old. To be completely transparent with you, I had these thoughts at 16 years old of getting into a car accident because I wanted to see how many people would show up at the hospital, how many people would actually show up to show me that they cared. And if you heard somebody say that, a young 16-year-old today, 2021, I think all of us would jump to say, how can we help you?
We
What do
need to
we
help
do?
you, right? But I think
Right.
it's so much more common than we were
Absolutely.
allowed to be transparent about.
Absolutely. And so
Absolutely.
I dealt with a lot of moving as well. I mean, I just dealt with a lot of challenges, and I didn't realize it when I was injured. And honestly, I didn't realize it for about 5 or 6 years after I was injured, when I really got into therapy and started kind of dissecting and really looking at my childhood and my injury more deeply and understanding my past, that I realized that everything that I had been exposed to as a young boy was preparing me for this moment when I was
Right.
19 years old and I was
That's what
injured.
I was thinking. And even when you were talking about your genes, like you were just grateful to have your pair of jeans, I was thinking you did have that, you had that thing before your accident, your big accident, because you were looking out the window, grateful, like, yeah, you're in the 250 square foot room, but you're looking out the window and you can look out the door a little bit, maybe not all the way, but you had that same thread
Yeah, and
before.
and for me, and the thing was is that I remember being in the hospital, and I can sit here and say to myself, yeah, there's a lot of things that suck about the scenario that I'm in. But the one constant that I kept focusing on was one, I couldn't say the first thing was the great thing I was grateful for is I'm alive. I couldn't say that quite yet. What I had to say was at least I can see, at least I can speak, at least I can hear, at least I have my fingers, at least I have my feet, my toes, right? And then once I was grateful for those things, then it was like, okay, now I'm grateful to be alive. Because if I just said I'm grateful to be alive, well, what are you grateful for, JR? And so I had to kind of literally kind of pick all these little things that I was like, this is what I'm grateful for. So yeah, so here I am now. I joined the Army at 19 years old because I believe it's an opportunity for a few things. One, for me to give back to this country that I felt honestly really indebted to because of the opportunities that it gave my mother, me, and my family in Central America. But also, I wanted to get money for college. I wanted to travel. I wanted to see the world. And so, it was my way of kind of, at that time in my life, it was a one-stop shop. It just made sense.
And then, but you come out and I think folks need to be reminded. Well, not reminded of this, but I've done some work with the Wounded Warrior Project, and
Hmm.
you know, it's been really one of my favorite things I've ever done in my life. But when you meet people that go through, you meet JR on the other side and he looks great and he's amazing and all the things, there's a time like the recovery is so hard. And let's not even talk about in your particular case, the physical injuries were so extreme that the mental injuries almost have to take a back seat,
Yeah.
get through the physical piece. And not only do these warriors overcome, and when he was saying grateful to have his fingers and toes, were you and Walter Reed?
No, I was at so Walter Reed was initially for amputees and for traumatic brain injuries. That was who they treat. That's what they specialized in for the most part. But Brooke Army Medical Center, which is in San Antonio, Texas, is the burn unit for the military. So of course that's where I was. And then Brooke Army Medical Center evolved and became, they treated a lot of amputees. They started to treat those with traumatic brain injuries and head
Yeah,
traumas.
TBI's out there.
TBI,
Yeah.
exactly. So I was
Uh,
in San Antonio, which was horrible. And not because of the city. It was horrible because every summer it's hot as hell. And I literally felt like I was reliving the moment all over again. Like
Burning your
the
skin.
day I
Yeah.
was injured, I was trapped inside of this burning truck, completely conscious. And I'm screaming and yelling. And I'm like, gasping for air because I had broken ribs. And then literally you put me in San Antonio, Texas. And those that are in Texas or have ever been to Texas, especially in the summer, my God, I felt like I was in that burning truck every day. I'd walk out of my room and be like, oh my God, help, right? Like, where's water? And it's just like, this is probably one of the worst places to put a burn center. Whoever came up with this idea did not decide to put a burn patient or burn survivor on the freaking committee on determining where we should put a burn center. I would have elected to go to Utah. I would have elected to go to the north. Let's go where it's cold. Alaska. Let's go. Isolate me a little bit. But I don't want to miss the point that you made that is so important. And I always feel like I have to remind people because when people have this idea, and you understand this with your work with veterans, when people think of veterans, they immediately think of individuals like me, meaning having visible wounds. And they quickly overlook that those people that have physical wounds also have mental and emotional wounds, right? They also have a scar that exists internally that honestly exists in every single person walking this earth.
Right.
But then also, most of the veterans are actually individuals that don't have a visible wound, that have a wound that exists internally. So when people always say, I want to support veterans, I'll say, well, the first thing you have to do is identify what a veteran looks like. And whatever your thought is, get it out of your head because it ain't me and it ain't just this other person that is an amputee. It's literally can be somebody walking up and down the grocery store aisle right next to you, looks completely quote unquote normal. And you would have no idea that that individual has served multiple tours, has lost battle buddies left and right. And it is fighting and it is a fight to even get to that grocery store today.
That's exactly right. And one of my nephew is one of those veterans. He that went out over early, saw things he was not by any means prepared at all mentally to see, did not get physically injured, but really hasn't made it back to us.
Yeah.
But his
It's
PTSD went 9 years without being diagnosed. So it's very substantial in our lives right now,
Yeah. So,
that
so
piece.
see, you have a different perspective than a lot of people. And when you think about, I mean, you've heard this soundbite, less than 1% serve in our military, right? And so when you really think about that, less than 1%, well, now then throw in their family members. Well, now let's say maybe another 1%. So let's just kind of round up and say 2% right there. Then you say maybe the people that work on those bases that are around them frequently. Well, let's throw in another maybe 1%. So now we're talking about potentially 3%. But let's just kind of round up just for the sake of it. Let's just say 5% of the nation's population have frequent contact with our service members, with veterans, right? With military
Right,
personnel. That means there's 95% of the country that has no idea that these individuals exist and what they are doing and what they are sacrificing every single day, not just Veterans Day, not just Memorial Day, not just Armed
right.
Forces Day. You get it. And so that's why it's incredibly important for people to just kind of like we had to do in the last year. Everyone now is like, healthcare workers, God bless them.
Frontline essentials. Yep,
Right.
for
Yeah.
sure.
And I'm
Yes.
like, they've been there before, right? They've been there before and they'll be there after this whole thing goes away and we can all get back to our world and be distracted by whatever thing is out there. But they're still there. They're still training. They're still preparing. They're still sacrificing. They're still putting themselves in a position that, God forbid, you and I need them. They're there for us. And that's the same thing with the military. And, I can't help but feel frustrated like when I hear the story of your nephew who for 9 years walked this earth and everybody would say thank you, yet he
Yes.
is the last one to feel grateful. He is the last one to feel that, oh yeah, life is grand and life is beautiful. I have all this opportunity. He's alive, but he's not living because the military failed. The military failed him. And if it
Yes.
were not for my best friend, if we're not for the people that I had in my corner, because I was on that track as well, Stormy. I can tell you, I was on that track. When I got out of the military, I was 22 years old. I started drinking. I started becoming angry. I was resentful. People started to judge me in the civilian world
And
because
by
what?
the way, one more thing. These guys are on massive pills
Yeah,
for pain.
yeah,
Like you can't, JR's not going through life with a clear head. You had to
yeah.
be on massive pills. That's another thing that they overcome is like drug
Ex-
addiction because you
exactly.
can't get over your losing a limb or being burned without taking a lot of pain.
Absolutely. And it's the same concept. I have a really good friend of mine. I mean, one of my great friends that we both joined and we met in basic training. And so he's still in the army right now, but I can tell you that he's deployed at least 10 times over the course of his military career. And and I can tell you that before certain deployments, he was not in the right headspace. He struggled with alcoholism, he struggled with drug abuse. I mean, he struggled while on active duty. And you know what the army did? You know what the military did? They sent him, okay, you know what? We're going to send you to a 30-day treatment and then you come back. Okay, get ready, pack up. We're going to deploy again. How is that healthy?
It's not good.
How
It's
is the
not
how is that
good.
the right thing to do? And then, but yet, for example, like I'm in this scenario right now where I'm actually in college. I decided to finally
Oh,
go to
good for
college a few
you.
years ago.
Congratulations. I was going to
Thank
ask
you.
what you're up to.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And so I I I fall into this category where my GI Bill, which is called, is
Hmm.
15 years. You have 15 years from the time that you get out to use it or you lose it. And so, I'm coming up on my expiration date, but I still have a year to go. And so I'm talking to them and I'm like, hey, officials, like, hey, can I get an extension? Is it possible to get an extension? Because, like, well, why did you start so late? And I was like, I don't know. For the 2.5 years, almost 3 years after I got out, I was depressed and I was angry and I was
Right.
struggling to adapt and to adjust. The last thing I was thinking about doing is putting myself on campus with a bunch of 18, 19, 20-year-olds that had no idea of life and potentially triggering me.
Yeah.
And it's just like, so how backwards is it that you guys are quick to fast track my process through training to get me to deploy, but on the back end you can't fast track the process to make sure that me and your nephew and my buddy and so many others get the right treatment that they earned and that they deserve. And that's why I bring up that statistic. When you think about maybe 5% of the nation's population actually have any understanding of the military, because then we become this voice that is not heard. We need
Yeah.
the other 95% of the country to actually say that's not right. We're not going to stand for that. And we're going to stand up for our veterans and we're going to actually advocate for them as well. And so I think that for me is one of the biggest things that I'm so driven by is how can I continue to use my voice and my platform to advocate?
Well, I think you do it really well. In fact, I want to talk about because then, all this stuff happened to you, and then you get on All My Children.
Yeah.
Like you nail a role on All My Children. And it was, so if I read it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but your friend suggested they're looking for a veteran, you should go audition. And then you do, and it's like life changing. It
It,
literally went on forever.
it literally did. It's insane. I never had this ambition or thought
What was
process.
your All My Children name? I hope that it's super, super like,
It's not sexy.
what?
It's not. It's not.
What
It's not
what they
sexy.
give you?
It's Brought Monroe.
Oh, come on,
Brought.
dude. That is so sexy.
Brought.
No one has that name, like a bratwurst or like you brought
Yeah,
it.
but like you need like the burn guys, bratwurst. I mean, it's kind of like it's like what's the bet? Like somebody in his room, like let's name him bratwurst. You cook him. He's a burn guy. Like whatever. Like nobody. And I remember coming on set the first day, and I was like, who the hell came up with this name, Brat? Like, where the hell does Brat come
Where
from?
did it come from?
Well, and this is where I feel bad making fun of it because apparently one of the writers was paying a tribute to one of his relatives. His name was Brat. So I feel bad for making fun of it. I just wish
Yeah.
I just don't look like a Brat. That's the thing. I mean, I
Brat
don't look,
Monroe.
yeah, Brat Monroe. So, you know what's
Did you have a
crazy about
love interest?
I did.
What was
I
her
did.
name
I had a
on the
couple.
show?
I had a couple. So it was first one was Taylor. I say
Love.
first one. Look at this guy. I
Brought the
so
stud.
you brought had a few love interests, and so Taylor was my first, and then Natalia became like my second love interest that then became my wife, and then that led us to when the show went off the air. So I was married. Or no, was I married or were we engaged? I forget. I got to call her now and be like, are we married or were we not?
Who are you?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, are we still in this thing or are we not? Like, what are we doing? Like, so, but what's crazy about All My Children is I remember when I was in the hospital recovering. So my mom always watched novelas. Novelas are Spanish soap operas. And she would tell me, remember the days when you wanted to record something on TV and you had to put the VHS tape in and actually physically hit the record button and then hit the
Yeah.
record button to stop it when commercials came on and then hit it again when the show came back on? That was my job when I was a kid. My mother was working the graveyard shift, so she would be sleeping when the shows were on, and my job was to record. So you would just picture me in the other side of the house, like playing a video game or doing something else, and all of a sudden I would hear a commercial, and I'd like sprint and like dive at the button, like bam, stop. So my mom has all these VHSs of all her favorite novelas. Well, when I was in the hospital, after the day and the routine, we would watch novelas together. And, of course, I didn't have much of a choice. I'm in a hospital bed. I can't get up and change the channel, right? Like I was like, okay, like I'm kind of a hostage to this. But you get into it like any good soap
Of
opera.
course. Yeah, you do.
And I remember telling my mother one day, I'm going to be on a soap opera.
You did?
And she said, oh, is that true? And I said, yeah, watch. One day I'm going to be on a soap opera. She's like, okay, what's the storyline going to be? Because I was always cutting up. I was always joking. This has always been JR. And she said, what's the storyline going to be? I was like, I don't know. I'll have like this beautiful love interest. And that was all I said. Literally cut to 5 years later, I'm getting on a soap opera and I have a beautiful love interest.
Taylor.
I mean, come on. Ladies and gentlemen that are listening right now, your words have power. Your thoughts have power. Speak it into existence because it can happen. Like you think it, you believe it, it can happen. So just throw it out there. The craziest thing, throw it out there because this world is a crazy and beautiful place.
Did you ever say to her, I'm going to go cut the rug on Dancing with the Stars?
No, I never said that. No, I didn't speak that into existence. I didn't manifest that.
Were you a dancer before Dancing with the Stars?
So I wasn't, but what I was a son, to a single mother. And I think,
Right. I have two of those.
yeah. And I was her dance partner, whether I wanted to be or not. Like I had no other choice but to be her dance partner. So I remember being a young boy and for those that, are not seeing this, you can visualize me just kind of walking through the living room. My mom would always have music on, and she would grab me. She would grab me and she would start just doing this on my arms. And then she would spin me. And I'm just, of course, standing there as like a 10-year-old, 11-year-old. And I'm like, gosh, Mom, can I go now? Stop. And then I got a little older and I realized girls like guys that can dance. And so then I said, hey, Mom, can you teach me a few of those moves? And she started teaching me, a little bit of what she knew. So I've always had element of like musicality and a little bit of rhythm in my body. And so when Karina Smirnoff, who was my partner on dancing, said, okay, show me what you can do. And they typically do in the packages on the first week of the show. And I think I busted out the Running Man or something crazy like that. Because that's all I was like, I don't know. That's what I do. Yeah. The Running Man, the sprinkler, I don't know. And she's like, no, we're not going to do any of that. Throw that out. And then when she started working with me, she was like, okay, you do have some rhythm. You do have some musicality. I do have something to work with. And then her eyes kind of got big because she realized we can maybe go far. Yeah, we can go far on this show, And so I got to be honest, a lot of people projected that I was going to be voted off by week 3, week 4. I always believed in my heart, not that I would win it. I never thought that. I just believed, I'm going to stick around a lot longer than 3 or 4. From beginning to end, if you're on the entire time, it's a total of 12 weeks.
That is a workout. Yes,
it is. And then you got to factor in how often are you rehearsing every single day, right? So for me, I'm a little bit of I don't want to say a perfectionist, but I definitely strive to be the best and to do my best. And so I would tell Karina from the very beginning, I'm like, hey, I want to rehearse all day long. And of course, her eyes got even bigger. She's like, this is great. Like I got my perfect partner, someone who has a little bit of rhythm and wants to work and wants to be pushed. And literally, we would rehearse on average about 8 to 10 hours a day.
What?
A day. And if that meant that I had to do my interview for the show, for the package they put together weekly in the morning, then guess what? We were going to go to 11 o'clock at night. We were going to go to midnight. It was no big deal for us to do that. And I believe that was one of the things, but I was also really lucky because I didn't have kids. I didn't have another job. Right. So, everybody else that is usually on that show has family they got to get to. They can't go spend 8 to 10 hours in a, rehearsal hall now. I mean, if I went back on the show now, I'd be like, one, I'm older. I'm like, no, my body can't do 8 to 10 hours.
I'm not doing that. I don't know how Carol Baskin did it. It's like, what are you?
Yeah.
How are you doing that? My God.
I mean, there's so many people that you look at and you're like, how are you doing this? But it went by so fast. I really didn't get to appreciate it and enjoy it. And
That's
that was
too much work.
It's a lot
of work.
It's a machine. It is a machine. I mean, you literally go from here's your rehearsal, and then at this hour you got to go do your fitting, and then at this hour you got to go do your interview, and then at this hour you got to go do press, and then you come back to rehearsal, and then your day's over, right? And you do that for literally 12 weeks. By the end, you're just exhausted, and you're like, oh. And I look back at that experience now, and I just think about all the fun that I had, but I really didn't get to appreciate it at that time because you're just too busy.
Trophy. You can gaze in your mirror ball trophy and be like, I remember that one day.
I occasionally
shook my booty to the point of like the trophy.
Yes, absolutely.
Pretty good booty shaking, JR.
My best was my samba. That was the booty shaking, routine was a samba.
Look up the samba.
Yeah, the samba. So look at the samba. I'm wearing like this orange shirt. That's where you really get down.
Was that your favorite outfit?
No, it wasn't my favorite outfit.
What was your favorite outfit?
I got to be honest with you. I think my favorite so I definitely loved my jive outfit. It was kind of had the suspenders and had like, the, I forget the hat, what it's called. But kind of like a
pimp hat?
The what?
Pimp hat? Was it a pimp hat?
No, it wasn't a pimp hat. It was like oh my God, I forget what it's called. But anyways, I loved that outfit. It was just fun. It was flowy. But then I also loved my waltz outfit. It was this tan suit. It was a 3-piece. And it was just made me feel like, the waltz. It's just elegant and graceful. And I just kind of felt like
and they're like fit to fit you perfectly.
Yeah. And I felt like a man. I feel like a man when I put that on. When I put the jive thing on, I felt like, like almost like a fun boy that has a little edge to him. When I put the waltz outfit on and I did my routine, I just felt like a man. And here's my woman, Karina, and we're going to do our routine and do our dance. Yeah. But they got to, and those are probably the waltz, at least they didn't rhinestone the hell out of it. So that was nice. Because every other outfit, they bedazzled the hell out of that every outfit. And I would always try to avoid it. Nope, there was no way of avoiding it.
So funny. So what are you up to? What are your social media handles? I'm gonna end this with a lightning round of just some various questions. But first I want people to know where they can find you, because you're definitely worthy of following.
Oh, well, thank you very much. So obviously social media, Instagram at I am J.R. Martinez. My website's jrmartinez.com.
Worth looking at.
Yeah, thank you.
Lots of good stuff there. Lots of good motivational little snippets. I went through it over the past couple weeks, and you're phenomenal. There's so much about you that we weren't even able to touch on. But
well, we'll touch on it when you get on the road and you come to Austin.
Right. I will come to Austin. I've never
God
been.
knows what we'll end up talking about when we have Sour Patch Kids and a beer in our hand. God knows.
Oh my goodness. It's going to be the best. In the RV.
We're going to have a lot of editing work to do. A lot of editing
put on a
work.
whole like hazmat suit and hug you and be like, oh.
I'll bring my test results. Look, I'm negative.
Yeah, we're both negative. And then has your podcast launched, or are you starting a podcast?
It has launched. Is called Rebirth. And the reason I call it Rebirth is because, as you know, a lot of veterans, the day that they're injured, they refer to it as their alive day. But I do not. I refer to it as my rebirth. And the reason why is because I believe parts of me died that day and other parts of me were born on that day. So for me, it's my rebirth. So this is my second chance at life to inspire and to learn and to grow and to challenge. And so that's what the podcast is about, is for me to be curious enough to have people on, to ask them questions, to learn about who they are, what drives them, how they got to where they are. And then hopefully, implement other elements of my life where I can inspire people as well. So it's my second chance at life, my rebirth, and I'm just bringing people along.
You inspire people, I'm sure, just by getting up in the morning. Sweet. I use veterans like that. My work with the wounded warrior, I really do. When I'm like grinding through a day, I'll think of people that I've met that grind through their day with smiles on their faces. And I often say that when you meet some of these warriors, and yourself included in this, that they laugh from a different place and they come from a different place. Mm-hmm. And I envy I hope for the day when I can walk from that place. Mm-hmm. And I think it's some kind of lesson that you get of appreciation or just confidence, or you found your passion or your purpose, you said, and maybe that's just your true self or something that really gets exposed. I'm not sure, but I know I feel it when I'm around, people say I do work, I don't feel like I do when I've done anything for veterans. I don't feel like I'm putting effort into it. I feel like what I'm getting back is so rewarding and fulfilling, that maybe that's really why I do it selfishly.
When you're around people, I mean, I get it. When you're around people that have experienced loss, and they've done the work, they get to a place where they're so grateful for every little thing that they have. And so that becomes contagious. And I think when you think of most of the population, I'm not going to generalize, but I think, maybe some people haven't lost, right? Or haven't been at the cusp of losing something or having lost something. And so I think now, to circle back to where we all started, I believe that COVID is essentially, for a lot of people, that thing. Now, unfortunately for some more than others, but I think COVID is that thing, right? Like it's loss, and it's time that we feel like we've lost in many cases. And so that's why I'm a huge proponent of get out of your own bubble, get out of your own box, get into someone else's box and learn about their perspective, get another perspective. And then you can come back to your box with that perspective, with that fresh perspective. Because I guarantee you, just like you said, Stormy, it'll give you something else to appreciate about life, and the way you look at life will be completely different.
Good to change glasses every now and again.
Absolutely.
All right. So these are my lightning round questions.
Oh, okay. All
They're
right.
easy. They're not hard.
Okay.
They're
All
just so good to get to know you better.
right.
Okay. We're going to
Right.
start with a really easy one.
Like this makes me more nervous than being on Dancing. I'm not gonna lie. Like for real.
I'm so
Like,
honored.
like
It's going to be such an easy question.
okay.
Pickles or popcorn?
Ooh. You know, I think if you just say pickles and popcorn, then I'm gonna have to go with pickles.
Pickles.
But if you gave me like, well, what are some options of popcorn and flavors and stuff like that? Well, then it becomes a little overwhelming. We keep it simple: pickles and popcorn. No pimples, but definitely pickles. I love pickles.
Okay, now you brought up pimples. Are you one of those guys that watch the pimple videos on YouTube? Where
No,
people
no, I'm
okay,
not.
me neither.
I'm not. I can't do it. I'm sorry. Like I have a stomach for a lot of things, but not that, right? And it's a little too much for me. No.
It's so gross. Okay, but you're a spice guy, right? So if you get like popcorn and then you're like, and you get to add jalapeno sauce and cheese.
Yes. Then I'm game. I'm game. Then I'm gonna go with that popcorn. Although now at 37 years old, I have to be careful with the spices. I'm at that place now. Where now my doctor. Yes. Yes.
Welcome to
You know, I almost got disowned by my culture because they're like, you have to take what to have spices? And I'm like, es que me pasa aquí and me siento de esta forma. And they're like, what the? Never would I have thought. I would have been stripped of my culture card because of the fact that I have to take medicine before I have spicy foods. Literally, this has happened to me.
I have you by a few years. I still don't have to take the medicine to eat the jalapeno.
Thank you. But let me log off at this very moment.
I did my 23andMe and I am white AF. I'm white, dude. This is one white girl.
Then what I'm going to do is when we see each other, I'm going to bring mad spices and then I'm going to make sure I take my pill about 30 minutes to an hour before and then we can enjoy something spicy. How about that?
That would be the best. Will your mom cook it?
No, she lives in Georgia, so she won't be cooking it, but I'll figure out something for you.
We'll make it happen.
Yeah, I'll bring my pills. That's the point.
I'll bring my microwave. Try to cook up something. Okay, here's another one.
Okay.
RuPaul or Divine?
Ooh. RuPaul.
RuPaul.
Yeah.
Can you remember Geraldine? You remember the first drag queen, the guy?
No.
What was his name? Oh, it'll pop to me in a second. It was like my original drag queen. Okay, so you're a RuPaul guy.
Yeah. Just love like the sassiness and the personality there. And I'm gonna tell you how it is and work. I mean, it's just, you know.
Would you love to be a judge on the Drag Race?
Oh, I would love to. I love to. I think it'd be so much fun. I had this experience that when I lived in New York City, that I went to this acting class. My neighbor invited me to his acting class, and it turned out that it was at the LGBTQ Center in New York City, and I didn't know. And so I walk in, and there was everybody there, and they were doing scenes, and I felt so connected to that community because I felt that what at least the people that were in that room, what they're looking for is unconditional love, acceptance, unity, community is the same thing that I was looking for so much of my life. And I felt so connected to them. And I feel like I have so much fun when I am in that space, in that community.
They're the best.
Oh my God, I love it.
The most accepting group ever.
And let me tell you something. So when that acting class started, I sat in the back and I was looking for my neighbor. I couldn't find him. All of a sudden, music starts playing. The room goes dark and there's one spotlight in the back of the room. And people are getting up and doing like a catwalk down the center aisle. And I'm noticing that, oh shit, it's coming to me. Like, right? Like, it's like, you know, like you're in church.
Gotta do it.
And I'm like, I don't have a walk prepared. I don't have an outfit. I was so intimidated. And luckily they stopped it before it got to me. But I walked out of there literally thinking to myself, Stormy, I was on a show for 3 months dancing in front of 20 million people and had no problem doing it. But the minute you put me in that situation, I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I just, and yet they were so embracing and they were like, just whatever. We don't care. Just do a walk and have fun, dance, laugh. Life is a beautiful thing to celebrate. And I just thought, how silly of me to think that it had to be perfect and this, choreographed thing. But I was sweating, man. I was like, I don't have a walk prepared. Yeah.
Okay, here's a couple more. Navy or Air Force?
Oh, I'll go with Air Force. And the reason why, I'll explain this to all my sailors out there and even Marines. The reason I go with the Air Force is because they have just better everything. I mean, you go to,
They're like the tech guys.
overseas. Well, you go overseas to their bases, and they have like air conditioning. I remember I went to
Yeah, but
Qatar.
isn't that kind of why people have to give them shit in the military?
Exactly. Yeah, we
Because they
do.
have.
But I'll take that shit if I can have a Burger King, a Starbucks. I can buy flat screen TVs. Literally, I went to Qatar to the Air Force Base, and I'm taking a tour, and I'm like, yo, you guys have a Starbucks here? You guys have flat screen TVs? We had none of that when I was in the Army deployed. Now, mind you, it was a long time ago as well. But still, the Air
Still.
Force, they figured it out. They know, hey, listen, we're going to take the intelligent ones, and then we're going to give them a good life. That's okay. I'm cool with
Okay, raccoon hat or MAGA hat?
that. Oh, definitely raccoon hat.
Inspired by our Viking.
Yeah.
What is it? The QAnon Viking at the Capitol wearing his raccoon hat. Something interesting about that.
Yeah, I can rock that. I can definitely rock that. The MAGA hat is a little hard for me. It's a little tough.
A little tough. You
Yeah,
look much better in
it's
camo.
yeah. I think the raccoon would go well. And plus, I used to have like this little rat tail when I was a young kid, so I think I'm comfortable with kind of whipping that thing around anyways. Yeah, so it's in my zone. I'm prepared for that.
Okay, alien or Bigfoot?
Oh man, I think Bigfoot. I
Really?
yeah.
So
Yeah,
if you had to go spend an hour, you would pick to spend it with Bigfoot?
yeah, I think I would. Like, because I don't know if I'm prepared if aliens are like, hey, let's go hang out, come to my place. And I'm like, well, where's your place? And it's like way up there. And I'm like, I don't know if I have the right, I got to pack a
Tools
bag.
to get
I got to
home.
pack an overnight bag. And it's like, and it may not be overnight. It like turns into like 6 years.
May not want to get probed that
Yeah,
day.
exactly. So Bigfoot, like we just kind of go out in the woods and I'm like, all right, what's up, dude? Like, what do you do out here? Right? Like maybe we start a fire.
Show him how to make fire. You'd be like,
Yeah, like what
Bigfoot,
do you
look,
do?
rub
Maybe
these sticks
maybe
together.
I bring a board game. We play Uno or something. I don't know, right? Like I can get home. I can get home. I think that's the thing. Now, in 20 years, when we have more advancements, then maybe I'll change and I'll say, all right, cool. I can rock with the aliens for an hour. But right now, I like my feet on the ground.
Bigfoot. And then the last one,
Okay.
if you're driving in your car from LA to New York, you can listen to one artist and you're by yourself. You're not talking with anybody. It's just you.
Bob Seger.
One Bob Seger, coast to coast.
Bob Seger, coast to coast.
Down on Main Street. I love Bob Seger.
Bob Seger, coast to Kathmandu. Turn the page.
I'm going to.
Oh my God. I mean, Bob Seger and
Down
my
Main Street.
wife, like she found an article, an interview that I did like right before we started dating. And it said, what is your favorite song? And I said, Simple Man by Leonard Skinner. And my wife was like, what? I've never, what? And I was like, yeah, like that's my jam. Leonard Skinner, Simple Man. Like, yes, I've had many drinks of whiskey to that song and Bob Seger. And I've actually did the drive from Texas to LA. I haven't done it across country completely. I've done it from Vegas to Montana and back. And I've had a lot of Bob Seger playing in my car.
Well, I'm adding it to my road trip list.
You
Getting
should.
everybody's favorite artist who they listen to, and then when I do it, Bob Seger. But I love Bob Seger.
You're not going to stop at one song, though. I'm sorry for all the other guests that have said whatever their artist is. I'm sorry. I think Bob Seger is probably going to trump. It's going to keep Stormy. You got to be careful with Bob Seger because you get so caught up in the lyrics and the jams and everything that before you know it, you're going 95 down the highway when the speed limit's 75.
That's what makes Bob Seger so great.
Put it on cruise control, okay? I'm doing this favor for you because it's happened to me many times on the highway, and I'm like, open road, have fun, put the window down, Bob Seger. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I'm going 20 miles over the speed limit. So I'm just giving you that warning.
That is a good advice.
Yeah,
I
you're
love
welcome.
Bob Seger, dude. This has
Love Bob
been
Seger.
a great lunch with no food.
I should have brought something at least. I could
You
have
know
been
what?
some.
I at least brought my grape Crystal Light drink
That's right. But
with
if I
water.
would have brought something to snack on, nobody would have wanted to hear me going.
Well, what's one of your favorite what would you have brought to lunch?
"Ah, well, I got to be honest with you. Right now, here in Austin, Texas, there is a winter storm happening. So there's not really much I can pick from my pantry, right? But so I have to be like smart about what I snack on. But
Do you
if
have
the
cheese
world was
puffs?
cheese puffs, we have that. We have like kettle chips. We have like, little bars. But I think if I can go to the store right now and get whatever I wanted, I would literally bring peanut M&Ms. That's my jam.
Ooh,
Peanut
let
M&Ms.
me
That's just my
know.
jam. Simple. No, don't give me the chocolate ones. That I don't need that.
Have you
Give me
tried
the
the caramel, the new caramel?
I need no. I don't know. Give me the peanut ones. That's it. Traditional. Don't even.
That's a
But then
good
I can
guess.
rock with the almond ones. The almond M&Ms I can rock with too. Like I think I need
Almonds are
that
good,
crunch.
dude.
I need that crunch.
You
That's
gotta
what.
have like the combination of the
Yeah.
sweet with the
Yeah.
crunch.
Yeah. Yeah. I gotta have that. I gotta have that. So now I'm gonna walk in 6 inches of snow and try to go find me some almond M&Ms or peanut M&Ms because
Wow.
because
I'm
you
gonna
got me saying that.
manifest them to you.
Please.
They're in your pantry. They're there.
Oh God, if it happens,
You're
I
gonna have
will
some.
I
You know
will
what my
come
guess
and
is?
get you and drive you here myself.
I would love that. I'm gonna guess that you have an old bag in the corner. You forgot about them. You almost ate them all. There's probably like 7 left in there, and you're going, "That's exactly what I needed."
Yeah, but you know what? I also am in a house with my wife and my daughter. So
They find them.
yeah, there's a possibility they're gone. Yeah.
I want to know. And the
Yeah.
end of
I'll
this, if you
let you
find
know.
M&Ms, you have to let me know.
I'm gonna tag you on social, and when you see it, you're gonna be like, he finally got his
He
M&Ms.
got
But
those
yeah,
damn M&Ms.
I love me some peanut M&Ms or almond M&Ms. So if you see me in the streets, you know what to come at me with.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I love me some J.R. Martinez, and I love everyone who tuned in today to listen. I want to say thank you so much. You can follow J.R. on all of his social handles that he mentioned. Rebirth with J.R. Martinez is his podcast. Be sure to subscribe and listen to mine. Lunch with Stormy. Give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. In the meantime, do something good, meet somebody ordinary, and listen to their extraordinary story as we did today with JR. And take care, be safe, and much love.
Take care.